Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure to join you today, particularly with such a thoughtful and engaged audience at the KN Raj Economics Club. I am Rodrigo Tadeu, a public policy practitioner from Brazil, and today I want to take you on a journey through the complex intersections of race, sexuality, and market dynamics, focusing on my own country, Brazil. Brazil is a nation of contrasts, a land of immense beauty and diversity, but also deep inequalities. It is a country where the legacies of colonialism and slavery continue to shape economic, social, and political realities. In our discussion today, we will explore how these forces intersect with Brazil market systems, perpetuating exclusion, and consider how we might begin to address these systemic issues. So let's start with history, because understanding Brazil's past is essential to comprehending its present. Brazil was the last in the Americas to abolish slavery in 1888. Over 4 million Africans were forcibly brought to Brazil during the transatlantic slave trade, nearly 40% of all enslaved Africans in the Americas. This legacy has left a profound and enduring impact. Even after emancipation, former enslaved people and their descendants were systemically excluded from economic opportunities. No reparations were provided, no policies for integration were introduced, and millions of Afro-Brazilians were left to fend for themselves in a society designed to exclude them. This exclusion continues today. According to Brazil's 2021 National Household Sample Survey, the average income of white Brazilians is nearly that of black Brazilians. Black Brazilians represent over 56% of the population, but account for 70% of those living in poverty. These disparities are not coincidental, they are systemic, rooted in centuries of racialized economic policies. Let's talk about the role of sexuality and gender identity in this context. Brazil is often celebrated for its vibrant LGBTQI+ culture, but this visibility masks darker reality. Brazil is one of the most dangerous countries in the world for LGBTQAI+ individuals, particularly trans people. According to Transgender Europe, Brazil has the highest rate of trans mothers globally, with over 130 trans people killed in 2022 alone. Violence is not only a social issue, it's an economic one. Discrimination in hiring practices and workplaces environment leaves many Brazil LGBTQI+ Brazilians in precarious economic situations. A 2020 survey by the Instituto Locomotiva found that nearly 61% of LGBTQI+ Brazilians have faced discrimination in the workplace. These forces may many into informal or insecure jobs, perpetuating cycles of poverty and exclusion. And when we look at the intersection of race and sexuality, the challenges multiply. Afro-Brazilians LGBTQI+ individuals both racial and sexual discrimination, creating barriers that are almost insurmountable for systemic intervention. Let's now examine how these social inequalities intersect with market dynamics. Brazil is the world's ninth largest economy, yet it remains one of the most unequal. The Gini coefficient, a measure of income inequality, stands at 0.54, one of the highest in the world. Economic policies in Brazil often prioritize growth at the expense of equity, perpetuating a system where the wealthy elite thrive while marginalized communities are left behind. One stark example is a land ownership. Brazil is the one of the most unequal land distribution patterns globally. Just 1% of the population owns nearly half of all area of land. This concentration of wealth and resources in the hands of a few dire consequences for economic mobility and social equity. Agribusiness, one of Brazil's most profitable industries, often operates on lands that were historically inhabited by indigenous people and quilombolas, descendants of enslaved Africans who formed communities to resist oppression. These groups are frequently displaced or denied their rights to lands, further marginalizing already vulnerable populations. The environmental consequences of these market dynamics are equally devastating. Brazil is home to 60% of the Amazon rainforest, often referred to as the lungs. Yet, deforestation rates have surged in the recent years, driven by logging, cattle ranching, and soy farming. In 2022 alone, over 11,000 square meters of rainforest were destroyed. Not only accelerates climate change, also disproportionately impacts indigenous communities who rely on the forest for their livelihoods and cultural identity. The intersection of environmental destruction and social inequality is a clear example of how market driven policies often prioritize short term profits over long term sustainability and human well-being. But amidst these challenges, there is hope. Brazil has a long history of resistance and resilience, and there are countless examples of communities and movements fighting for justice and equity. One inspiring example is the Movimento dos Trabalhadores Rurais Sem Terra, the landless workers movement. This grassroots organization is for agrarian reform and the redistribution of land to landless families. Through collective and sustainable practice, they not only challenge the status quo, but also create alternative economic models that prioritize community and sustainability over profit. Another example is the Preta Lab initiative, which promotes the inclusion of Black women in technology. By addressing the systemic barriers that Black women face in accessing education and jobs opportunities in STEM fields, Preta Lab is fostering a more inclusive and equitable tech industry. What you can learn from these movements that change is possible when we challenge dominant narratives and reimagine economic systems. This is where institutions like enrich Economics Club and organizations like Rethinking Economics play a crucial role. By fostering critical dialogue and encouraging innovative thinking, you are creating a platform for the next generation of leaders to question the status quo and advocate for systemic change. As someone who has worked across public policy and grassroots initiatives, I can tell you that the solutions to these challenges are often found within the communities most affected by them. Whether in the favelas of Rio de Janeiro or in the villages of Kerala, local knowledge and lived experiences are invaluable resources in the fight for equity and justice. So, where do we go from here? Let me leave you with a vision for Brazil that embraces its diversity and uses it as a strength rather than a source of division. Imagine Brazil where economic policies prioritize equity and sustainability, where Latinos and Colombian communities have secure land rights, where LGBTQA plus individuals can live without fear of violence or discrimination, where every child, regardless of their race or background, has access to quality education and the opportunity to thrive. This vision is not a utopian, it is within our reach, but it requires bold action, collaborative efforts, and commitment to rethinking our economic systems. To everyone here at the KN Grad Economics Club and those who are inspired by rethinking economics, let this be your call to action. Challenge the dominant narratives. Advocate for policies that center justice and sustainability. Build alliances across borders, disciplines, and identities. Economic systems are human creations. Their injustice are not inevitable. They're choices. And because they are choices, they can't be changed. Together, we can rethink economics, rebuild our systems, and create a Brazil and a world that is equitable, inclusive, and sustainable. Thank you.